are the thrill seekers, corrupt and immoral.
It's been a very tough year for Ireland's so-called respectable banking institutions, in between being caught red-handed robbing their customers' money, running offshore tax evasion scams, and operating bogus accounts for some very, very questionable activities. It brings to mind Al Capone's famous old saying, the only difference between a gangster and a respectable bankster ain't much. Gangsters rob banks, and banksters rob everyone else. But all of this ain't nothing in comparison to the real banking scandal. Did you know that the government give the banks here the right to generate billions of pounds in loans with feck all money to back any of it up? Funny money loans that are hardly worth the paper they're written on. Come on, I'll give you an economics lesson. Fractional reserve lending is a fancy term used by banks to describe how they literally create money out of thin air. And here's how it works. This here is Mr. and Mrs. Millstone, and they're hoping to buy this beautiful £100,000 house here. And they hope they get the money from the bank. Now, using fractional reserve lending, the bank is legally allowed to loan out 10 times more money than it actually possesses. So the bank only has to risk £10,000, which they use to write a cheque for 100 grand, which they give to Mr. and Mrs. Millstone, and they in turn give it to the builder. In theory, the bank ought to use their own 10 grand to back up the loan. They don't, however. They're not that stupid. They usually get the money off people like the Millstones in the form of a 10% deposit. So what about the cheque for the 100 grand that the builder got? What about that? Surely that's good. He can spend it, can't he? Well, yes he can. And if he goes to the bank, he should get cash for it. You see, the problem is that if every person who got a cheque from the bank tried to cash it, there just wouldn't be enough money in the bank to cover 90% of them. Of course, that's something the banks hope never happens. Nice one, banker. Now I know what a lot of you folk out there might be saying to yourselves. You might be saying, big deal, so what? The economy is booming. You might be saying, I have my credit card, my lovely apartment, my hire purchase car, holidays in the sun. Whole economy is just swinging. You might be saying to yourselves, well, how could I have ever afforded such things had I not been for the local friendly bank? And besides, I can repay my debts, so stop whinging. But hang on, before you head down to the pub for the fifth night this week, bear with me, I want to take a bath. This bathtub here represents the Irish economy. All the water inside it represents all the money in circulation. Now, this bucket down here represents all the phony bank loans that the banks pour into the economy practically every single day of the week. Now, what happens in the short term? The building sites are full, there's credit cards, they're selling apartments and houses, there are people out drinking every night of the week. Unfortunately, however, for every bucket load of phony money the banks pour into the economy, they extract 3 in return. Yes, it's the big I, interest. Tell you, it makes you wonder what's going to happen when it comes to payback time. Well, let's take a look. Here's £1 billion in repayments that will never ever be spent for the holidays ever again. From now on, it'll likely be Butland instead of Benidorm. Here's thousands of remortgaged houses to pay for all those shopping sprees. Jesus, look. Nearly all the money is gone. The economy is in bad shape. We've all been completely conned. But this could never happen here, could it? The Japanese allowed their banks to generate zillions of dollars in phony loans, and the end result was that the whole of Asia ended up drowning in a sea of unrepayable debt. When their economy slowed down, people found they couldn't repay their debts. The banks got nasty and started foreclosing. The Asian people soon copped on, however, that the banks had enslaved them and refused to pay them a dime. Speculators panicked and took all of their money out of the banking system. Eventually, the entire Asian economy collapsed. But that's Asia. They do things far differently out there. Our banks are an awful more civilised, aren't they?